The snow fell softly that December evening, each flake catching the golden light spilling from the grand ballroom windows. James Harrison stood on the terrace of the Riverside Hotel, straightening his bow tie, taking a moment away from the company's annual charity gala. At 48, he'd built his tech firm from nothing, and these holiday events had become routine. But routine, he'd learned, could make you forget to actually see people. That's when he heard the small voice. "Sir, we haven't eaten since yesterday." James turned. There, just beyond the ornate iron gates, stood a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 6 or 7. With blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing a red velvet dress with white fur trim. It was the kind of Christmas dress a child should wear to celebrations, not while standing in the cold, her breath making small clouds in the winter air. Beside her stood a woman in her early 30s, wearing an elegant champagne-colored gown that looked expensive, but worn, as though it had seen better days. Her long blonde hair fell in waves around her shoulders, and even in the dim light James could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the kind that comes from carrying too much for too long. The woman's hand shot out to gently pull her daughter back. "Emma, no, we shouldn't bother people." Her voice was soft, educated, touched with embarrassment that made James's chest tighten. He walked toward the gate without thinking, his polished shoes crunching on the snow-dusted pathway. As he got closer, he could see more clearly. The little girl's cheeks were pink from the cold, her small hands clasped together. The mother's elegant dress couldn't hide the fact that she was shivering, trying hard to maintain composure, to keep some dignity intact. "My name is James," he said gently, kneeling down so he was at eye level with the child. "And you are?" "I'm Emma," the little girl said, her voice small but clear. "And this is my mama, Sarah." James looked up at Sarah. In the golden light from the building behind him, he could see she'd once been someone who attended events like the one happening inside. Her posture, the way she carried herself, spoke of a different life. But her eyes held something else now. Fear, pride fighting with desperation, and beneath it all, love for the child standing beside her. "How long have you been out here?" James asked quietly. Sarah hesitated, her lips pressed together. We were just walking. Emma saw the lights, the decorations. She wanted to look. But Emma, with the honest innocence of childhood, said, "Mama's been looking for work. We've been walking a lot today. And yesterday, too." "Emma," Sarah's voice broke slightly. James stood slowly. He'd seen poverty before, had written plenty of checks to charities. But there was something different about standing face to face with it, about seeing a mother's hands tremble not just from cold but from the weight of protecting her child while her world fell apart. "Please," he said, and his voice came out rougher than he intended. "Come inside. Let me get you both something warm to eat." Sarah shook her head, tears glistening in her eyes. "We can't. You don't understand. I didn't bring her here to beg. I just wanted her to see something beautiful, to remember that beautiful things still exist." Those words hit James harder than any business setback ever had. He thought about his own daughter, grown now and living across the country. He thought about all the times he'd been too busy building his empire to notice the small moments, the beautiful things. "I understand more than you think," he said gently. "And I'm not offering charity. I'm offering dinner between, let's call it what it is, between people who could use a moment of warmth on a cold night. Please, come in." He opened the gate himself, the wrought iron cold beneath his hand. Sarah looked down at her daughter, and Emma looked up at her mother with those wide, hopeful eyes that only children possess, the kind of hope that believes adults can fix anything. Sarah's shoulders sagged slightly, the fight going out of her. Just something for Emma," she whispered. "For both of you," James said firmly. "Come on." He led them not into the grand ballroom where his company's party was in full swing, but to a quieter side entrance, to the hotel's elegant restaurant. The maitre d', Richard, had worked there for 30 years and had seen James through countless business dinners. His eyebrows raised slightly at the unusual guests, but James gave him a look that said everything. "Richard, could you arrange a quiet table near the fireplace? And bring menus, please, whatever my guests would like." They settled into a corner booth, Emma's eyes wide as she took in the white tablecloths, the crystal glasses, the fire crackling warmly in the stone fireplace. Sarah kept her hands folded in her lap, her back straight, trying to maintain the dignity she clearly refused to surrender despite everything. "The chicken fingers are exceptional here," James said to Emma with a gentle smile. "And they make the best hot chocolate you've ever tasted. Real whipped cream on top." Emma looked at her mother, seeking permission. Sarah nodded, her eyes brimming again, and Emma smiled for the first time since they'd met. It transformed her little face, made her look like the carefree child she should be. As they waited for food, James didn't ask questions. He'd learned in his years of business that sometimes silence is kindness. Instead, he told them about the restaurant, about the chef who'd worked there since it opened 40 years ago, about the time his own daughter had accidentally knocked over an entire tray of desserts at a company function when she was Emma's age. He watched Sarah slowly relax, just slightly, watched her fingers uncurl from the tight grip she'd kept on her napkin. When the food came, hot and fragrant, Emma's eyes went wide again. "It's okay, sweetheart," Sarah whispered to her daughter. "You can eat." And watching that little girl take her first bite, seeing the relief and joy on her face, James felt something shift in his chest. How many times had he sat in restaurants like this, barely tasting his food, his mind on deals and profit margins? When had he forgotten that food was more than fuel, that sometimes it was love and safety and hope all served on a warm plate? Sarah ate slowly, carefully, and James could see her fighting tears with every bite. Pride is a strange thing. It can keep us standing when everything else wants us to fall, but it can also keep us from accepting the hands that reach out to help. "I used to be a teacher," Sarah said suddenly, her voice quiet but steady. "Third grade. I loved it. Every single day, I loved it." James waited, not pushing. "My husband, Emma's father, he died 2 years ago. Car accident. Sudden. We had some savings, but medical bills, funeral costs, and then I got sick myself last year. Nothing serious, but enough to miss work. Enough to—" She trailed off, looking down at her plate. "I lost our house 6 months ago. We've been staying at a shelter, but there's a waiting list, and some nights we just walk until morning because it's safer than some of the places we could go." Emma was focused on her chicken fingers, humming softly to herself, and James was grateful she wasn't fully listening to her mother's words. "I've applied everywhere," Sarah continued, "but when you have no permanent address, when you have a child and need specific hours, when you've had gaps in your employment, doors close fast, real fast." "And tonight?" James asked gently. Sarah's laugh was bitter but not cruel. "Tonight the shelter was full. I had $20 in my pocket. I thought we could walk through the nice part of town, look at the Christmas lights, make it an adventure for Emma, make her feel like things were still normal, special." She looked up at him then, and her eyes were fierce despite the tears. "I would never have asked. I've never asked. But Emma, she saw you, and before I could stop her—" "I'm glad she did," James said simply. They sat in silence for a moment, the fire crackling, the soft sounds of the restaurant around them. James thought about his own life, his comfortable home, his retirement accounts, his daughter's college education fully paid for. He thought about all the things he took for granted. "I have a proposition," he said slowly. "My company has an opening in our HR department. Administrative work, benefits coordination. It requires organization, people skills, compassion. Teacher skills, I'd say. The pay is fair, and there's health insurance, vacation time, all the usual benefits." Sarah's face went very still. You don't have to—" "I'm not offering out of pity," James interrupted gently. "I'm offering because my HR director has been complaining she needs help for 6 months, and I keep forgetting to do anything about it. I'm offering because good people are hard to find, and I think you might be good people. And yes, I'm offering because I can. And because tonight I looked into a little girl's eyes and remembered what actually matters in this world." He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. "There's a hotel suite upstairs that the company keeps reserved for visiting clients. It's empty tonight. Stay there. Get warm, get rested. Tomorrow, come to my office. We'll talk details, fill out paperwork, and if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, no harm done. But at least give it a chance. Give yourself a chance." Sarah was crying now, silent tears running down her cheeks. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do this for strangers?" James thought about that question. He thought about his own journey, the people who'd given him chances when he was starting out, the mentor who'd believed in him when no one else did, the business loan he'd gotten from a banker who went out on a limb. He thought about all the closed doors and the few that had opened, because once, a long time ago, someone took a chance on me, he said, because my daughter is grown and living her own life. And sometimes I forget what it's like to be needed, because you're trying to show your daughter that beautiful things still exist. And I think that might be the most important job any parent can do, because it's snowing and it's Christmas and I can. He paused, then added more softly, and because when you get to be my age, you realize that all the success in the world means nothing if you can't look in the mirror and recognize the person looking back. I want to recognize him. I want to like him. Emma, who'd been quietly working on her hot chocolate, suddenly looked up at James with her whipped cream mustache and said, "You're nice, Mama, he's nice." Sarah let out a laugh that was half sob, reaching over to wipe her daughter's face with a napkin. "Yes, baby, he is. He really is." They finished their meal slowly, and James told them stories about the hotel, about the city, about nothing in particular. He was giving them time to be warm, to be full, to be safe. He was giving Sarah time to let her guard down, to stop being in survival mode for just one evening. Later, when he walked them to the elevator, Emma's hand in her mother's, he pressed the key card to the suite into Sarah's palm. "There are robes in the closet, toiletries in the bathroom, and room service if you need anything. Sleep in. Take your time. My office is across the street, 14th floor. Come by whenever you're ready tomorrow. Or if you decide this isn't right for you, that's okay too. Either way, the room is yours for a few days. No strings." Sarah looked at him for a long moment, this man in his elegant tuxedo who'd stopped his evening to see them, really see them. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for seeing us, for seeing her, for remembering that we're people, not just problems." James nodded, his throat tight. "You're not problems. You're people having a hard time. There's a difference, and hard times, they don't last forever." As the elevator doors closed on Sarah and Emma, Emma waved, her smile bright and genuine. A child who could still believe in kindness because she'd just witnessed it. James stood there for a long moment, watching the numbers climb, then walked back to his party. But it felt different now. The music, the laughter, the champagne, it all felt like it was happening at a distance. He thought about Sarah's words, about showing Emma that beautiful things still exist. Maybe that was what they all needed to remember. That beauty wasn't just in the golden lights and elegant dresses. It was in the choice to open a gate instead of walking away, in the decision to see people instead of problems, in remembering that the smallest gesture could change someone's entire world. The snow was still falling outside the windows, soft and gentle, covering the city in white, and somewhere above him, in a warm room with soft beds and safety, a little girl was probably already asleep, her belly full, her mother finally able to breathe. It wasn't solving poverty. It wasn't changing the world, but it was changing their world, at least for tonight. And maybe James thought that was enough. Maybe that was everything. He pulled out his phone and sent a message to his daughter. "I love you. Call me tomorrow. I want to hear your voice." Because sometimes it takes standing in the snow, looking into a stranger's eyes, to remember what you have. And sometimes it takes a little girl in a red velvet dress to remind you why any of it matters at all.